Understanding our biases. Each second, our brains process 11 million data points of information. But our conscious mind is only able to absorb 40 to 50 pieces of information, and the rest falls to our subconscious mind. The difficulty of this depends on how our brains have learned the difference between what is relevant to analyse and which information is useful in a given situation. If you were to spell dog as quickly as possible, you are likely to be able to do this because of how your brain has learned and been exposed to this information. The same goes for a simple maths calculation, such as 1 plus 1. Most of us don't actually do the calculation or spell the words mentally, we just know what the correct answer is. There are lots of other answers we assume are correct. The problem with learning is that it can often come from a point of bias. Bias is a term which describes when we support or oppose a person or a thing in an unfair or unequal way due to personal opinions that influence our judgments of a situation. Everyone learns about the world from a variety of sources, such as the news, the people that we have around us, and what we see in everyday situations. The first time you come across a situation, you may process the new piece of information in a subconscious way. Does it back up something you already think or know? Is it similar to something that you already like? This is bias. If we go back to how much information our brains receive to process per second, it's easy to identify how our personal experiences and subsequent bias can influence the rapid decisions we make. Here are some of the key types of bias we might run into. Affinity bias is when we favour those with similar attributes or experiences to ourselves. This can sometimes be as a result of attempting to validate our own self-worth, which might lead us to surround ourselves with people like us. This can often be seen in friendship groups and how we hire people into teams or recommend them for voluntary positions or promotions. Confirmation bias is where we seek data that backs up what we already think. If we already believe something, we might then reinforce that thought when we see more examples of it, so the perceived truth becomes stronger in our mind. This can make evidence that proves the other side of the discussion seem less valid or even discredited. For example, think about seeing a news article shared on social media from a source that you trust or a source that you don't consider as creditworthy. Conformity bias is where we change our minds because of the way the rest of the group thinks. Think about a time where you were in a meeting, and in order to get the meeting to progress, you might have changed your mind to fit with the consensus of the rest of the group. This may sometimes be good for social cohesion, but it might not help bring different perspectives into decision making, which is one of the benefits of working collaboratively through committees and working groups. The halo effect is where we disproportionately focus on a singular good quality of an individual, therefore thinking everything else that they are given to do is also good. The halo effect can sometimes be applied to our perception of celebrities. If someone is a good entertainer, we might then find it difficult to believe that negative stories about them are true. The opposite of this would be the horns effect. Just think of the saying, "A leopard never changes its spots." Try not to let previous experiences with individuals influence your judgment of others if they share a common characteristic. Beauty bias is where we favour someone more aesthetically appealing. We may see this in the types of people that companies typically use during advertising campaigns or during face-to-face interviews. The trouble with bias is not that it exists. In many situations, the underlying processes are hugely important mechanisms that enable us to make decisions quicker. However, in order to be fair and just, we need to unlearn and relearn some of the stereotypes we may well believe about people's age, their gender identity, ethnicity, disability, sexual orientation, people of different faiths, introverts, accents, body sizes, tattoos, or people who didn't study at a particular university, just to name a few. These are not the things which define an individual's capability. The broader the input we can collect from our communities, the more informed we can be, and reduce the number of assumptions of things that we hadn't previously considered. By understanding our biases and being more inclusive, we can then be more transparent and professional in our careers and our personal lives. So next time you are thinking about who to hire, or who to invite as a speaker, or who to nominate, pause. Think about which of your biases could be playing a part in the automated decisions you are making. Are you considering everyone who could be eligible for the role or award? By being more conscious and challenging your biases, you can ensure that everyone receives an equitable assessment by you in that process.